away my darkest pain. Inside I feel my spirit rising. Emotions mended by a woman's touch. A new future on my horizon. I'll never think it too much. Through the heartache and the pain, you made my gray skies blue again. And after all that I've been through, I believe in you. Heartache and the pain, you made my gray skies blue again. And after all that I've been through, I believe in you.
All right, we did it. Thank you. There is more in the audience, but I'm not seeing them. Not sure what is going on here, but okay. Now, Laura, there should be something in the corner of your screen that you'll click on to go on video.
Yeah. Do you hear me?
Yes, I can now. Gosh, I'm not sure what's going on here, but hey, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
I've accepted the
Let me
video.
introduce our guest.
That's weird. You don't see me. I accepted the video request.
I don't see you on the video.
Can you send it back? I accepted, but
you know what? There's some sort of issue with Fireside because I have not been able to log on. I have not been able to see the guests that are on there because I know there's more people on there. I saw them when I logged in. You can't get online. Never had this happen, Laura. I'm so sorry. Let me invite you again and see if anything changes.
Technology is so unpredictable.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, good. Well, in the meantime, Laura
Yay!
is
I think it's working.
Host and founder. Yes. Yep. Awesome. Okay, we got Laura. She is the host and founder of the podcast Zen AF, a self-development podcast that helps listeners get more mindful and optimize their mental health and general well-being. Thank you so much, Laura, for coming on the show.
Thanks for inviting me. I was super excited about that opportunity.
Yes, for sure. Podcasts, because they were in French. You're in Canada, right?
Yeah, French, Canada, and Quebec. So I have all of my episodes except one, which is in English, but I'm going to do more in English. It's just for the beginning. My audience is French first, but I really just want to open up to all kinds of people. So English will come more and more on my podcast.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was listening to the Share podcast. I was actually Omar's first interview for the Share podcast. Must have been 6-7 years ago.
Awesome.
And
I didn't know
isn't that funny?
Wow.
And yeah. He's come quite a long ways now.
Oh, yeah.
And I heard you on there, and as Omar doesn't let speak very much. I did hear a lot of interesting things, and I love that you're all about healing. Mm.
Oh, I lost you for like 2 minutes.
Oh, that's so horrible. I know.
Uh,
I can't believe it. It's just really, um, I was just saying that if you could just tell us a little bit about your experience and how you became interested in, you know, changing the story to a more positive light.
yeah, actually, the story is kind of the story of my life, but I won't tell the story of my life because I will just say bit by bit. But since at 14 years old, I've developed an eating disorder, which is called binge eating disorder, which is actually the most common one, which but the less talked about because people are not dying from it usually, but it
Uh,
does affect a lot your self-esteem. It does. It's very similar as an addiction. Actually, that's how I've lived it. And that was the beginning of my story, and the always wanted to fix myself and to find a way to change how I was feeling, but because I was feeling too much, obviously it was too much for me, and I had to cope in a way in by using food actually. So it's kind of I wanted to solve that so
mm,
much, but for at first for the wrong reason, because I just didn't want to get fat. That was like the when you're 14 years old, you don't want to, you're scared of gaining weight. That's kind of the worst thing that could happen to you.
yeah,
So you always want to find solutions. So
right.
at first it was that, it was just for my physical appearance, and then I was like, why am I not able to stop? Like why am I like
Mm,
I'm struggling that much to commit to something, to say like tomorrow is the last day that I'm going to overeat, or Monday, diet starts tomorrow, or diet starts Monday. Like why I have
mhm.
no discipline, why I cannot commit to a promise that I'm making to myself. So this is similar to an addiction when you think about that, not being able to stop some kind of habit, some kind of consumption. And it's not a
Right.
lack of discipline, as we know. It's more profound than that. It's more complicated than that. So in trying to
Yes.
solving, you know what I mean?
Very complicated. And that's the thing. It's like, where do you even start? When people like me, or when you want to stop, you're used to living like this every single day, and your life has to completely change. But where do you start? It's very difficult because you've got your brain, you do the physical, like you stop the drugs, you stop the binge eating, but then you've got this thing that's going
Oh
around.
yeah.
and and it's just, it becomes really difficult, especially if you don't get help and you're doing it on your own,
Oh yeah.
because a lot of people, with COVID and everything, they're on their own.
Yeah, I think COVID was the worst thing that could happen to everyone who's sensible to addiction, because we were
Mhm.
it was all uncontrol things we cannot control around us, and it was really hard for that. But for me, it kind of pushed me to go deeper into my introspection. And when you're talking about like where to start, I was like preparing for that interview. I was asking myself, like, where did I start? Like, what was my, because my journey was so long, and it's not even like I'm not healed, like 100% healed.
Yeah, of
Uh,
course.
you know what I mean? Like, I'm not like, oh, I am Zen AF. It's kind of ironic. I use Zen AF because that means like I'm always aspiring and wanting and working towards a Zen as
Okay.
fuck. But I'm always as like I always want to work toward that, but I
Um,
always have things to work on and to adjust, and I have to do it in a compassionate way, not being like, oh, why am I not fixed yet? And why am I not perfect yet? So that's
I
kind
like
of
that.
one, yeah, that's part of the problem, to be that hard on yourself and to say, darn, why am I not like healed and so on. So I don't know where I was going with that, but the first thing. So what's like the first thing that happened in my journey to healing is really the gaining awareness. So
Mm,
first of all, learning about what awareness is, like learning about the fact that there is your thoughts, and there is something higher, like a self, that is witnessing your thoughts. So that is
Mm.
like mindfulness. To mindfulness was like the first tool I was in a pharmacy, and I saw on a book rack like a random book called Mindful Eating. So it was always with my food struggle, but I
Mm.
learned about mindfulness through mindful eating. And it spoke to me so much because for the first time, it was not about finding the right diet for me. It was about
Mhm.
understanding that I was eating because of different emotion and situations in my life, and to
Mm.
understand that there were triggers, and that was like way more complicated than you have to eat tuna and salad and that's it. So for me it was like a game
Ah.
changer, and I was like, okay, so mindfulness. And then I read about mindfulness, I studied mindfulness, and I began to meditate, and that was really the beginning of it all, because it was the first time I was sitting with myself and just witnessing that I was like there's the me and there's the thoughts, and it's two different things, and I'm not my thoughts. So
Oh,
that,
yes. Love it.
so it's really simple, but it's kind of a, when you have that realization, you're like, oh, so I'm not a slave to all of my crazy thoughts, because there's some interesting thoughts, but I think that almost 50% and more are kind of dangerous thoughts that we're having. It's from our childhood issues, it's from what our parents, what people around us have told us, but it's not
Mm.
necessarily the truth. Like, we don't have to believe everything that was said to us when we were young, but when someone in your family tells you on and on, like, don't do that, when you do that you are wrong, when you do that you are wrong, you
Mhm.
you find you end up thinking it's the truth, and that's really dangerous, because it affects your present life, and it can be toxic and drive negative emotion, and then you want to escape, and what you used to escape is often not super healthy.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're kind of talking like the subconscious, your subconscious mind. You had a realization, that you're subconscious, and that's an incredible uh, realization to have, because it's so
Yeah.
profound and spiritual at the same time. And that's interesting that you say meditation, because so many people have such a hard time with meditation, especially as alcoholics, because
Yeah.
I feel that we have this really, really
Fast
fast.
paced. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So it's difficult, but I think with practice, if you keep trying, it can get better, and that's a really good tool once you do get sober to continue with meditation.
Yeah, and I think that, yeah, it's true, and meditation is maybe not the only way, but like to allow silence. For me, it's really and that's still something I really struggle with. I
Mhm.
always like need stimulation, and I think addicts are like that. Like, I always need to be stimulated. Like, boredom is like my worst nightmare. Just doing nothing, it's like I cannot stand with myself. Like, that's the
Mm.
thing I most struggle with. It's like the sitting with myself, there's something that's rising, and that's so uncomfortable.
Mm.
Like, I have to get out of it. I have to get out of myself. So I have that instinct. I don't know where it comes from. I really have no idea. I feel like I'm like that since teenagers, since hormones maybe.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know why, but just to not watch Netflix. Like, I talked about Netflix with Omar, and because
Mhm.
honestly, I still have to have like something on, always chatting, and that numbs me, so that helps me being more comfortable, but that's not healthy, because I don't feel connected to my soul, I don't feel connected to my intuition, I don't feel that. And when I push myself to have that silence, it's there's something wonderful, that connection to my soul, to my happiness, that's not from the external validation and external sources. It is precious, and that's the thing I think you have to allow, and for some people it's prayer, so allow yourself to have that moment of silence with
Mm.
yourself. Spend time with yourself, have a meeting with yourself every day
Yeah.
for 5
Yeah, I
minutes.
like that. Yeah, I've been riding my bicycle lately into the forest. I have a lot of health issues. I have a lot of major health issues in the last year. So it's been really rough. I've been in a lot of fear,
Mm,
negativity, all these things, not
yeah,
necessarily all because of, I'm thinking about my future and what is it going to be like. It's more of just an everyday fear. It puts me a little bit more of anxiety. So I've been trying to do things to, to get rid of this and also get rid of the pain as well. So I've been riding a bike, which it's electric. So it has a little bit of help.
help.
And I've been going into the forest, and every time I go in, it's just so beautiful. And I think to myself, okay, I'm listening to this really great book, but I think I should turn it off because there's so much with those big trees hugging each other
Yeah,
and all the oxygen around and the quiet wind and the birds. And it's amazing. And even on the back of my husband's motorcycle for years when we used to ride, I would always have the best ideas when I was sitting on the back,
yeah,
even though I had the helmet on, I
yeah.
wasn't talking to anybody. I don't know. It was just very strange. I had that, profound moment every time. So I'm a lover of going into nature and, connecting with that way too, as
I,
well.
I could not have said it better. Nature is like, for me, there's meditation, and nature is just another incredible way to connect with yourself and to be in the present moment, because it gives you something to listen to be like aware of. Like right now, I'm in the present moment. What am I hearing? Like you're saying, what am I feeling? Like the wind in my face. Like there's nothing more wonderful and magical and natural than that. For me, it's one of the spiritual practice that I love. And in winter is so hard here. Like I know, I think, are you
Mm.
in Florida? Where are you located?
Yes. Yes. Moved to
Oh,
Florida recently.
so that's good. That's good for you. That's good for you, because the winter is really hard when you're a nature lover. I know that people walk outside like in winter, but I'm not a big fan of the cold, honestly. So
Hmm.
when summer's coming, like I feel so much more at ease, more connected spiritually, because I can do those walk in nature and just be okay. Look, now let's like get out of my head and just like, what am I witnessing around me? Like what's happening? And when I'm walking my dog, which is of course every day, I'm trying to like connect in that way. I'm like, okay, I'm walking my dog, so it's a good moment to like, instead of being in what I have to do today and so on, because for me it's in
Right.
the morning. Like I wake up and it's like everything that I have to do, and my boyfriend is not even like up, and when he's up, I'm like blah 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 blah, blah. And he's like, I need more time. That's yeah, that's moving too fast. So to create those moments in nature, like yeah, I love that idea. Like that's something that's really helping to connect to gaining awareness and connect with yourself. And I too have the best ideas when I'm in silence, or when I'm
Hmm.
working out, which is like the same, because I'm just doing the exercise and focusing on what I'm doing. So I am in the present moment when I'm exercising. So that's a moment when ideas will come. And I think that's super important to cultivate those daily moments. Uh, when you're addicted, like you really need that. And I know I'm talking about like when you're addict, and I've said it before, like I've never been addicted to a substance other than food or
Hmm.
like Netflix and so on, but there's so much thing like in common with that, and I cannot say like it's the same. It's so much different, and the gravity is so much different, but spiritually there's something that's really similar to that
Yeah.
experience, you know.
That's interesting. I heard you talk about something, the easy button. I thought that was
Yes.
such a great, that was just the way you explained that, was so interesting. Can you just talk about
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, of course. So it's actually the concept is that pain in your life is mandatory. So you will always be faced in your life, not always, but it's inevitable to feel some pain and to have some pain in your life, to have some difficult obstacles to face, but suffering is optional. And what that means is that you are going to be faced with a situation. So pain is inevitable, but suffering is when you are in resistance mode. And when you decide, and when you are in resistance mode, you you have this instinct to escape because it cannot be happening. So when you're not in acceptance of a situation that's happening to you, you're like, no, this can be happening, this can be happening. And then the panic starts and you have to escape it. And the stress is too intense, so you're not connected to your intuition. So often people will escape in with the easy button, so with an easier solution, an external product, substance, whatever it is. And it is so hard to like sustain, to be in that situation, that you really want to like use the easy way to escape it, the fast way to escape it, and which is the easy button. And easy button often is of course substances, external validation, so external stuff that we connect ourselves to because we want to get out of ourselves.
Right.
So this is the easy button, but actually the easy button leads to suffering.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's really not the solution, but I feel like in our society it's even more and more tempting. We have more and more easy buttons everywhere. Like
Absolutely so right.
it's so easy. It's so easy in our generation. Like we want everything right now, right in this moment. And if we don't have it, it's like we cannot like just wait for something. It's like even we ask for Uber. If the Uber is not there in 5 minutes, we'll ask for another one. We'll try another app. Like we have to have everything and to solve all of our problem instantly, instead of just sitting with the emotion, feeling the pain because it's painful and it's normal that it's painful, and knowing with faith that it will pass. Maybe sometimes it's not one day, sometimes it's an hour, sometimes it's a year, but knowing that it will pass, and just having faith, which is where the spiritual component just enters in. And I know everyone is not necessarily spiritual, but just trusting in something, trusting in the process. We have to, like, how can we just live without this confidence in something bigger than us? But that's me.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. One of the things I love that I've said before is acceptance is the key to all of our problems.
Oh yes.
It's a good one. And I actually learned that in the 12 steps. It's a great acceptance is the answer to all of my problems. And once you accept something, or even just giving it up to something higher
Yeah.
and allowing it to go on its way, because there's nothing we can do about it. We're
Yeah.
completely powerless
Mm-hmm.
over people, places, things. And when I kind of learned that, it takes so long because I got sober when I was 32 years old, and I had been out as a addict and an alcoholic for over 20 years, and I didn't have a sober breath in between on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know how to live without a substance.
Yeah.
So here I am in the world, and believe it, I was very excited, and I felt great. It was weird. I felt great. And then, a couple years later, it hit me. And it's because your mind catches up all the fun stuff and all the new people and the great job and being able to fill your gas tank, just little things that you were never able to do. You still have this little child, basically, because I feel like when I started drinking was about 16 or 17, and doing drugs. All that time, I feel like I kind of left her on the side and just bye
Mm-hmm.
bye, Daniela. And then here I am. Who am I? So it's a very interesting journey, to say the least. And that's why I do this, because I want to learn more. I know there's so much more. And as you get cleaner, more sane, whatever you want to call it, you have more awareness, and it's such a gift to now have all these outlets and all these resources, for us to learn all these new things. And I read on your Fireside profile, you're a strategist of
Culture strategist. It's so
culture strategist.
complicated. With businesses. So I'm like my day job, as we say, my day job, how I make money, like my background and so on. It's really in business. And I've come from wanted to actually not wanted to, but I was a marketer for yogurt. So Danone, you probably know that
Oh
brand,
yeah.
which is a global brand. So I was helping to sell yogurt through strategies of marketing,
Okay.
and I was good at it, but it was really not fulfilling for me. It was like, why am I trying to sell more yogurt to people? Like I was that didn't just connect, and I don't want to judge people who do that, because for a lot
Sure.
of people it's fine and it's their creative outlet, but for me it just lacked purpose, and I just wanted to help people. That's something I felt like when I was at 22 years old. I was like, I want to help people. Like it's coming up, it's so strong, but I don't know how. I have no idea how I will help people, because I'm not a psychologist. I don't have any like things in my background to help people, so to serve a mission. So I transitioned into HR marketing, which is human resources marketing, and I
Yes.
help businesses to engage their employees and connect them to the voice of their employees. So I lead focus group. I analyze surveys where I really listen to employees, how they are feeling, and then I report that to executive committees of businesses to recommend them some solutions, to tell them like your employees are feeling that, and that's really not motivating for them. So that's like the culture strategist. That's what it means. So I help them implement strategies to make their employees happier. That's how I connect like a certain kind of purpose. So that's like my day job, but I'm like really like in the transition right now of always trying to connect more and more to a mission, which would be one mission.
Mhm.
Because right now I have the podcast on the side, which is more directly self-development and more directly on my mission. And I
Mhm.
have my day job that I try to make it more and more serving a mission, but still being in my skill set. So I am paid and
Right.
I survive, because that's life. So I'm in that transition, and I'm going into maternity leave in like 2 weeks. I'm like 38 weeks right now.
Oh my goodness, it's so hard to
Yes,
tell. That's
I
amazing.
would have to like woo, but yeah,
Wow, you have a big belly. That's
I have a
wonderful. How
huge
exciting.
belly. I am walking like that. Oh
That
yeah,
is so exciting. Wonderful.
yeah. So
Now, your mind, have you had a lot of hormonal issues during your pregnancy?
surprisingly, I've never been more zen.
Wow.
That's Yeah, because before I was always like with the season, I was like a leaf. I was really a lot of emotion, like
Hmm.
feeling a lot of things always and always in my reacting. And with PMS, honestly, every month it was insane. Like my boyfriend will really know what's like it's happening right now. Like
Yeah.
whew, it's too much. And since I don't have any more PMS, and and there's life inside of me. There's like an inner wisdom that
Yes.
comes with it. And I know that everyone would experience it differently, but for me, it's like, it's helped me a lot with my eating disorder, actually. Like, it's helped me a
Really?
lot. Yeah. And I was saying like 90% healed. Okay, I'm trying to put percentage, but it's not working like that. But what I mean is that like I was really on the like top of the mountain, super aware of what's happening when I'm seeking comfort,
Mm-hmm.
but still not like coping with that much quantity. So it's not like binge eating more than eating for comfort. So it was like a not big quantity. So I was like healed, but like you cannot stop eating. So it's not like stop substances. It's really hard to say like I'm healed
Right.
or I'm not. And with pregnancy, it's like I had another motivation that was so much stronger and so much Like it was just compassion and love and
Yeah.
just, and I started the podcast at the same time in September. So
Wow.
it was like a momentum of being more zen, and I'm not saying like I'm perfect. Like I had COVID last week. A lot of things are happening to me right now.
Oh, wow.
It's a crazy 2 weeks. Like it's a cosmic, like universe is saying, okay, you have to clean up your life before the baby arrives. So I
Oh,
had like
gosh.
water damage. My oven just broke
Oh,
yesterday. I'm like, why? In 2 years, nothing happened, and I have all those things happening. So I'm not perfect. And when I had COVID, I was finding it difficult to just sit with myself and not wanting comfort with food because I was so powerless, like in my bed. Like, what if I go into labor and I have COVID? My boyfriend won't
oh,
be able to come with me. So, all of these
oh, wow.
events and what you're saying about acceptance, I used that a lot during this week. I was like, okay, right now, you are not in acceptance of the situation. You are in resistance. You're like in your head blabbering about, like, why is this happening to me? I'm so angry. Like, I saw my friend and she saw a bunch of people before. And so I was like in those negative feelings, trying to
Right.
blame someone. And I was aware that I was doing that. I was really like, that's the important part of when you cultivate awareness. You know that you're doing something, but it's not because you're aware that you can stop yourself. It's not that easy, it's
Yeah.
then you have to reframe your thoughts. You have to decide to be in acceptance. So it took me like 1 or 2 days, but after 2 or 3 days, after 2 3 days, I was like, you know what? It's kind of good because I'm allowing myself to just rest, like do nothing, because I've just stopped working, and I was doing the podcast, I was pregnant, preparing all the
Yeah.
stuff for the baby. It's my first baby, so I have no idea what I'm doing. So all of this pressure was so much that I was like, you know what? 1 week in bed, resting is not that bad, you know?
Yes. Like, let me ask, how long did it take you to be that aware? Because you seem pretty aware. You're helping yourself get through these things, but that takes time to get, cultivate that awareness, like you mentioned.
My God, how long? It's like I would have to like say that date I was officially aware. But what I can tell you is that I
Yeah.
started like at 2022, so like 10, it's been 10 years that I'm on that path and working. Like it's taking time because it's not something linear and like that. It's I didn't know that I was looking for that solution, and that what I had to study, like I'd stumble upon, like I was like, oh, there's a book like that, and that drove me to another insight, and then another insight. There's no school of, actually right now there's probably school of self-development because there's like coaching schools and so on, but
Yeah.
it was not that popular. You didn't know, like, this is step one, and yeah, that there's actually the 12 step, which helps a lot. But for overeaters, I tried Overeaters Anonymous, which
Hmm.
is like there's the 12 step and so on, but I didn't feel like I belong. Like I didn't feel that sense of,
Mm.
I wanted to share, I wanted to tell my story, I wanted for people to tell me. I wanted the circle thing. Okay, I don't
Yeah.
know if it's really like that in A meetings, like
Hmm.
circle, people sharing their stories, people helping each other. It was like someone talking each time and people just being in the room, but I was so lost and so desperate that I just needed someone to take care of me, and I needed like to talk, to connect with people, and that just didn't happen like that,
Mm.
unfortunately, which is why I didn't continue the Eater Anonymous. So even then, I was looking for solution and always alone and never finding what to do. It was such a lonely place to be for like all of my life. I
Wow.
was so alone. Like there's
When
so
people,
less, like not a lot of research. I wish I thought about like going to AA meetings even, because I was like, I feel like I would belong like to those people that just
yeah.
are real and are raw, and
Yeah.
I just want to share it to have that community, but I've never found it. At this day, I've never found that community.
Wow. Wow, that's interesting. A lot of people I sponsor because I have over 15 years sobriety, so I try to sponsor women and give them advice through the 12 steps and everything because that's what they did for me. And
Mhm.
that's why we keep going back to the meeting so we can help the people like they helped us. And I notice a lot of the sponsees and the girls that come in, they they feel the same exact way. They feel like everybody's watching them. They can't speak up. They're totally in fear because they feel like they don't fit in, and they don't ever come back. Um, what I try to tell them is keep going until you like it.
Yeah,
Try another meeting until you find a meeting that you like. Don't give up because there is going to be one that you're really going to connect and you're going to really meet people that are going to be your friends for the rest of your life. For me, it was totally different. I blew my stomach lining of my stomach out. Even after that, I still didn't even know that there was such a thing that called alcoholism, and that I had a problem. And I still wanted more afterwards, which was insane. I didn't even put the picture together that it was the drugs and alcohol that made the stomach lining burst open. But when I walked into my first meeting, it was just by chance. I had walked in, the love, the love I felt, and the reason why I felt so much love was because people were speaking a language I could understand for the first time in a long time.
hmm,
My parents, they always were trying to make me happy. They would give me this, give me that, all the love in the world. They would do anything to make me happy. And that was the problem. A lot of the problem. You can't fix this alcoholic. I have to do it myself. And
yeah,
when I finally got sober at 32, just walking in that room and listening to the stories and understanding that I have an issue was a big, wide open, just cracked everything open. And once I kind of just allowed that, I kind of just went with the flow. And these girls, they're so amazing. Some of them, they took me out to dinner afterwards and they listened to me talk because of course I was nuts. It was my first day. And they listened to me talk for an hour and they took me to dinner and they actually called me the next day.
wow.
And I was like, wow.
I wish I had that. That's wonderful.
I hope you would try to give it another try at a different place
But I
just to
know you're
see.
right. I know you're right because I'm always saying that everything that's worth it, at first you will feel uncomfortable. You will feel like you don't belong, but you have to stick with it. Like I know you are right, totally. But I was so, I don't know.
It's
And
hard
I
to.
bought the books. I told myself like I will do it, but alone. But the fraternity
Mm,
part is so important. But I wish someone would have taken me like in charge
yeah.
like that. I wish I was the you have always when you have a newcomer, you would have always like someone making sure like a buddy making sure that the newcomer feels like included and knows how it works and
Right.
has a phone number. I've even
Yes.
tried to have my mother like my mother like she was a health coach. She is a health coach. She's still alive. And I was like, okay, when I have those feeling, I will call you. But it's my mother. Like she's part of the problem. She's part of why I'm like that. So I cannot call her.
Right.
She's too close to me. Like that's
Yeah.
not working. Like I craved that body and I even convinced myself, and I still don't know if it's true, but that's what I was, the person and the support I was looking for was actually someone that I could be for myself.
Mm.
Like that best friend I was looking for
Oh,
to complete me could be myself. I could talk to myself that way, which is
wow.
but I know that fraternity, like, I wish I had someone, but I think you also have to be your best friend. I think you have to be that person for you, and that's Omar did for me the exercise of reparenting. I don't know if you know that
Mm-mm.
if you know that
No.
exercise. He actually used the fact that I know I'm going to be a mother, I'm going to have a daughter, so it's a girl, and
Oh.
he just like it was after 5 minutes talking to him for the first time, and he was like, okay, but imagine your daughter is in a room and she's hiding herself, eating a bunch of food and feeling ashamed, and you walk like you walk you enter your daughter's room and you see her. How do you feel and what do you say? And I just burst into tears. It was
Yeah.
an explosion
Yeah.
because I saw myself, because I did that all of my childhood, because I've been so ashamed and I was
Mm.
feeling so alone, always alone. And my parents didn't know it, or they did know it but did not say anything. I was always hiding with all those box of cookies, and feeling sorry for myself and
Mm.
isolating. And what I felt was like what I wanted to tell her was so much compassionate, so much love. It was only that. It was so like it was a burst of. I was crying because I was feeling like sad for her, but at the same time I was feeling so much love for her. And
Mm.
and what I
Wow.
said to her was like, I love you. You are enough. You are
Mm.
perfect as you are. You are like what you are feeling is normal. What you are feeling is okay. Like
Yeah.
you are fine. Like I will help you get through this. Like I'm with you. Like you are loved. And that's what I was saying to her.
That that makes me emotional because I think it makes me think about when I was a young girl and how I was just so angry and I was so mean and bad to my parents, and it's just it reminds me of just that girl and how I, what how I would tell her, You're going to be okay.
Yeah,
These
it
things
brings
that I
us
think that the
it
things I
brings us
thought were
directly.
making me
Yeah,
happy, they
yeah,
weren't. And it's just really touching to go through an experience like that. And you're lucky because you've been working on yourself for the past 10 plus years, and you have a child coming, and now you can help yourself help, be a better mother for
yeah.
sure.
And actually, I had that illusion that I want to wait to have a kid to be like healed. you know,
Yeah.
We're like when I'm going to. I'm still not figured out. Like I'm going to wait, and I'm 33 years old, which is for some people older to have a kid, like a first kid. Let's say I'm one of my last body. I'm not saying it's like too old. I'm just saying in society, like 33, like I was the last of my girlfriend like to have a child, and I was always waiting because I felt like I had so much thing to work on, and I was scared to um to fuck up my child. Let's say it
Right.
like that. And I think
Yeah.
it's inevitable to influence and transfer some patterns, but at least I'm going to be aware and wanted to work on myself. And of course, I'm scared of that situation because I know addiction, there's a little bit of genetics in it.
Right.
So I'm scared of that. Like I am. I
I
am.
I don't have children, but I think about that. I think about, okay, if I was to adopt a child, and it's just fear. It's so much
Yeah.
fear that
Yeah.
we're just filled with it.
Yeah.
Thousands of different forms of fear just riddle our brains all the time. Even just before the podcast, I said, "Oh, I'm not good enough. I can't
Oh,
do this."
yeah.
It just That's just, it's and when you have a brain that just does not function right anymore, that forgets what she was going to say. But when you have so many different things you can use as outlets, is it too much, do you think? I mean, there's so many things. Like, do we really have to be that in tune with our problems? Like, yes, maybe our mom said the wrong thing as when we were a child, like, don't do that. That's not good for you. Those things. But what if it isn't not good? And yes, it affects you, but I mean, how do we can't become so perfect and analyze our thoughts and our actions so much that, we kind of make ourselves crazy in a way.
There is a balance because yeah, I'm an overanalyzer, like for sure. I think it's good to just understand some of the things that were mostly impactful, but the importance is not to be resentful towards what our parents did to us. And did to us is like, my parents, they loved me. I'm super privileged. I had no abuse in my childhood. They were just the way they were. They were a little bit perfectionist. They didn't like too much emotions, and I was always like too much. So those are like little things, but still things that made me feel not good enough or too much of something. And but I don't
Hmm.
feel resentful. So it's not like I'm not trying to like pinpoint everything, but that helps me understand, because the fear you talked about, which is, I always say, my God, I have so much fear. Like I'm living in fear. I'm really the same. Like I'm my first reaction to things is really fear, but I'm trying to like switch this because anxiety is not helping it at all. And I
Yeah.
think that fear is ego based. So I'm always trying to challenge like my fear. Is it coming from the need to be some kind of person like that and like that? And
I
it
get that.
helped me to understand that fear was coming from a little bit from my dad, because he was so fearful of our little daughter like living in the world that's so dangerous. Like my father lived in a lot of fear, and I realized that, and that just helped me to dissociate a little bit of that emotion.
Yeah.
So it's just like some realization that just helps you to move on and to say like, okay, that comes from that, that's interesting. Okay, so I can, like, I'm not that attached to it yet. I'm less attached to it because I understand where it comes from. Like for me, it's been like that. It's helped me like to dissociate and to say, I take the best of what my parents gave me, which is a lot,
Yeah.
and the rest, I don't have to take it. I'm choosing what I move on with, but I dissociate with some of the things that I'm not obligated to identify to
Right.
everything they are.
I like that. I like that a lot because a lot of us get stuck on these past issues and behaviors and things that we've been through, and we have to forgive and we have to
Yeah,
move on because
you
there's
have to
so.
move on. Yeah, yeah, you cannot get stuck. You
Yeah.
cannot get stuck. You have to understand that your parents did the best they could with what they knew, what they had. Sometimes
Yeah.
it's really hard because when we're talking about abuse, of course, it's hard to be forgetful, well, not forget for forgiveful, to forgive.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, hatred is like drinking the poison and hoping the other one dies. So it's
Mm.
really like the thing you have to. It's just really impacting yourself. You are the one
Yeah.
suffering when you're not forgiving. And I'm talking, and I don't want to judge because I didn't live with abuse. I cannot like judge someone who
Yeah.
has lived with abuse, and I would totally understand someone feeling resentful towards the parents that is still not aware and denying everything that must be horrible. But I know that resentment just brings you stuck in the past, and like you said, doesn't give you anything good. So you have to forgive. Like, they did the best they could with what they knew, with the
Yeah.
experience they've had, the way they knew, they thought love was.
Such
So
a
I
key thing, what you
Yeah,
said. It's resentment. It's an offender of a lot of lives.
yeah.
People can't let stuff go and then they end up dead because they drank too much. They didn't eat. They did eat. Whatever. It
They
doesn't
poison
matter.
themselves. They do
Yes,
that. They poison themselves.
right. Exactly. And it's sad because a lot of people cannot let go of or even associate their ego and their thoughts and put them apart like that. it's really sad because so many people are dying, and
Yeah.
these podcasts, I believe, just a few words, even if someone just took a few words out of it, of acceptance,
Yes. That's the one I
what,
would have chosen too. That's
yeah,
the one I would have chosen. The acceptance part is life changing because it's every
yes,
situation that happens to you. You have two choice: acceptance or resistance. And
hmm,
like resistance doesn't bring you anything good. That brings you suffering.
yeah,
So for me, that's the takeaway. That's the for me it really changed things for the last few weeks, like directly. So I, like you say, only one bit can really change your outlook on life, and your outlook on life is directly related to your addiction, to the managing of your emotion, to it's all connected. It's not about the addiction, it's about like what's
yeah,
under underlying, like the way
yeah,
we feel about ourselves.
yes, absolutely. And I bet you you practiced contrary action when I asked you to do the podcast. You probably thought, because you're pregnant and you're about to have a baby and you had COVID and you still said yes. That was really nice of you. I appreciate you coming on. That was so wonderful.
Yeah, but that's
And
so exciting. Yeah, but I feel privileged. I'm like, wow, like that's wonderful. I've never told like my story or like that's a good experience. I love that, and I really enjoyed talking to you. You're really awesome.
aw, well, I'm so glad you came on. And for whatever reason, as I've gotten older, I used to do on camera stuff when I was in my 20s and 30s. Well, now I'm different. I have a hard time with that. I have a lot of anxiety before I go on. And I'm just so glad that we were able to talk and have a good conversation, and, that you're doing well. And I appreciate you coming on just right about to go on maternity leave. And we really wish you the best, and let us know how it goes, and thank you very much for coming on.
That's so nice. Thank you for the invitation, Daniela.
And hey, where people want more of you, they can go to your podcast, Zen AF, and that is zenaf.buzzsprout.com. And your social media on Instagram is Laura_Zen_AF. Where did you say some of the English pods are at?
Actually, the season two, so the English pods is the last one with Omar Pinto when we talk
Okay.
about what is beneath our addiction and underlying. So that's the number 13. And my social media is a lot of quotes in English. So there's
Awesome.
more and more in English. And season two will come when I will feel like I've like I said, like I don't know what it is to take care of a newborn. So I
Yeah.
want to be compassionate with myself. I want to
Right.
practice what I preach, which is give myself time. I don't want to wait too long. So I'm saying like season two coming summer 2022. Summer
Great.
can be June, summer can be July, summer can be August. I don't know how I'm going to feel. But there will be more and more episodes in English because I want to explore all of the interesting people that I can talk to.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And Zen as fuck
Yeah.
should become a book one day. I hate to say it, but that is such a cool experience with your life. And to name your book, that would be very catchy too. But I
I will
just
think
love,
about that.
I think with all of your experience, you could probably come up with a really great book that would help a lot of people.
Thank you so much. That
And
means a lot.
you take good care, and enjoy motherhood, and we'll talk with you soon.
Thank you. Have a nice night.
Thank you. And thanks for joining us, everybody, on the live stream on YouTube and Facebook. And please join us next week. We have an awesome guest coming, Mackenzie, and she is from the Sober Elephant Chronicles. Thanks again for joining us.